So, hi Louise, welcome to my podcast, One for the Road. And today we're going to record a bonus episode in between seasons. How are you today?
I'm really well, thanks, Dave. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And I'm really grateful that you've chosen to come on this bonus episode because you are the sponsor of my podcast.
I
Um,
am.
Yeah, tweak life is something we're gonna talk about later on. But being it's a bonus episode, I thought it'd be really, really helpful for people that have just come off the back of Sober October 2022 to talk about your experience with your drinking. We're not going to go right back like I normally do. We're going to start at where you realize your drinking had started to become a problem. And if you don't mind sharing your experience
Yeah.
around that.
Yeah. So for me, just give you a little bit before I thought I needed to stop was when I had kids, I had postnatal depression. So I'd always had anxiety before, but after having kids, something, that chemical imbalance was there. And so postnatal depression reared its head, which I tried to um, put away in a box and tried to leave it. But ultimately, I did end up going to get help from a GP and had a tablet to help me with that. So my anxiety sort of was reduced because I had that under control. But I would say there was probably a time where I started to have a glass of wine at home, which I'd never done really before, wasn't a home drinker. My husband's not a drinker. Um, and we moved house. And when we moved house, I guess it was different routine. And I did slip into that having a glass of wine in the week, not always, maybe one glass of wine. Um, if I went out on a girls' night, it would be more. So very typical, probably, of somebody who looked like their drinking wasn't a problem in terms of volume. Um, but for me, it wasn't the volume. It was how that drink would make me feel. So a glass of wine could keep me up for the night, and then that would be a number of nights that I would feel like that. That anxiety feeling would then pass into the week. So even though I was on this tablet, sertraline, to control anxiety, which did a fantastic job, um, the alcohol was actually causing anxiety to come up, even though I was on this tablet to essentially control it. Um, and so that it went on like that for probably 5 years. And I think the reason it was for that period of time is alcohol is that one drug that is socially acceptable. And when you say to your friends, "Oh, I don't think I'm going to have a drink," it's not making me feel good, you're met with, "Well, you don't drink that much. Don't beat yourself up as if it's a choice, that you have a glass of wine and then I'm just going to think to myself, oh, do you know what? I'll make myself feel rubbish about having that." Whereas obviously anxiety isn't a choice necessarily. There's ways in which you can help yourself. And so I had tried to stop a number of times before this period of sobriety, and it felt very different to this time round. And I think I kind of built up to ways, I kind of built up a toolkit really of why this is successful this time round. And I started writing the content for Tweak Life. So how that idea was born is that a friend of mine, and he won't mind me sharing, I said hi to him in the workplace and he didn't look very well at all. And that day he said he'd contemplated taking his own life. And I felt I had to open up about anxiety then. And that was a big catalyst for Tweak Life to develop, that I didn't want anybody to feel alone. That if you can open up, which I did on that day, and it helps somebody, then the more you can do that, the more people will be helped. So that was a big catalyst. And so whilst I was writing content for Tweak Life and finding all these helpful things of, essentially if you've got a rucksack with a load of wellbeing toolkit in it, I was actually doing myself harm by drinking, and I wasn't taking my own advice when I was writing this. And then I started to go down the route of, right, let's journal, let's see how I feel after a drink, trying to almost drink mindfully, if that makes sense. Like, do I want a drink now? Why do I want to drink? Why do I want another drink? And I'd gone from having, say, I could drink half a bottle of wine to then finishing the bottle of wine, which wasn't like me. But for me, that anxiety feeling came even from one glass. And so started putting those techniques into to stop drinking, one of which was your lovely self, listening to your podcast. And I went away on holiday, and every morning I was getting up dead early, getting a rucksack with a picnic blanket in, making myself a coffee and listening to you sat on a beach in Cornwall. And in my head, I just thought, this is it. Why have a drink if it makes you feel crap? Like, just because it's not volume. And I guess I didn't quite know where I sat in how I felt, because if you say sobriety or sober streak, that conjures up what you would think would be an alcoholic, somebody dependent, and I didn't feel dependent. I didn't drink every day. It wasn't that reliance. And so I wasn't quite sure how I felt, or should I be giving up because other people can handle to have a drink? And so could I just not, like, dial it down? Could I just not have a glass and say that's moderating for me? So would that be okay? But I tried that a number of times and it didn't work. And so that holiday, I know you refer to stopping alcohol like a breakup, in terms of, that it's the mistress on your shoulder saying, oh, come on, one more drink. And I guess I took that on board. And so that holiday, it felt like I was breaking up with this ex. I was just like, no more now.
Yeah.
And then I just had to knock it on the head. And whether it was all those things that then put it into place, and that's why it did work. Previous attempts, I tried a lot of the alcohol-free drinks. This time round, I barely have them. It's just so different. It's really hard to explain why it's all clicked. A bit like that Kaplunk. Is it called Kaplunk? That game with the marbles and the
where you pull the sticks out.
Yeah. It felt like I just pulled the right sticks.
But you
And
know
it
what I
worked.
think has happened there is, without you realizing, you're gradually educating yourself with little snippets of information, right? And I always describe it like you're coming with me to B&Q, right? You don't know why we're going, what we're doing, and whatever. And when we get there, I'll say, right, here's your toolbox, one of those big concertina ones that you open up and it's empty.
Yeah.
And I might put in a cordless drill, spirit level hacksaw. You might put in a screwdriver, a hammer, and something else. We all got our own tool. What you've done there is you've built up your sober toolbox by listening to the podcast, journaling, maybe reading a quick letter or something, right? With, alongside that, the right, almost like the right mindset about why, what are your reasons why, why are you drinking? And as we said before, it's never about the amount, because as I've said many times, I was a litre of vodka a night. You're one glass of wine a night and it's making you feel like crap. And that's all it means. It's not
Yeah.
competition. Do you know what I mean? And this is where you fit into that area of grey area drinker, because there's so many people now that they don't drink every night, or they might go a week or 2 weeks without drinking, but they could
Yeah.
the weekend, or they could, they could have a spell of 2 or 3 nights of a bottle a night. And it, the area of a grey area drink is so big, and that's where you've fitted into. And it was the right time. That's what happened to me. It just felt the right time. And all of a sudden, you make that decision, you go, that's it, I'm done. And it doesn't end there, because, as you know, you have to work at it. And you're now,
Yeah.
by the time this goes out, I think you're 150 days, which is why I thought it
Yeah.
was really brilliant for you to come on, for all these people that have done Sober October and they're thinking, what's next? We got Christmas coming up, and then, do I drink until Christmas and then do dry Jan? It's the ideal time to actually carry on,
Yeah.
because the
Just
first
keep
30
going.
days are the hardest, aren't they?
Yeah. yeah, I would say like 100 days felt really good. The first 30 actually surprisingly went quite quick, but equally, I did do that counter thing on an app, and I found that really helpful, whereas I hadn't done that before. And I don't know about you before you stopped drinking, but there was things that I had started to change anyway, a lot through writing the content for Tweak Life. You know, if I found something that was useful in terms of, oh, I'll do that for my training and my exercise, or I am a person that likes routine. So whether, like you say, I had built up a number of things, put those in place, and so that made it a little bit easier. But going back to the point of volume, I think that's really important, because often if you say to somebody, I'm stopping drinking, they either think it's because of a health kick, or you just want to try and cut back a little bit. And so often you're then encouraged to drink.
Mm,
Whereas what I did this time, rather than saying, oh, I'm on this exercise challenge or I'm doing this, it was just like, it doesn't serve me well, and it makes me quite anxious. And I've not had one person say, "Oh, go on, Lou, go have one pint or have a glass of wine." Whereas if you say you're on a health kick, they're like, "Oh, come on, one pint won't do any harm." Um, but actually, I found again being upfront, honest, like I was with that guy about my anxieties, that he understood, I understood. Um, I found being honest was just so much easier. And the sober community on Instagram as well. The wonderful guests that you have. And I do touch base with them to say hi, and because I love the podcasts when they come out. And I've met people through that community and then spoken to them as well. And so if there are people at the end of that Sober October wondering what to do, then look at your toolkit and see if you can reach out more to that community. See if you can journal and be mindful of how you feel now and how you felt before. Because I was actually looking at my journal before we spoke today, because I was journaling when I was in Cornwall, and my list of the pros and cons as such, there's not a bad thing that's come from not drinking.
mm,
It's all positives, all of it. So if you're there at the end of those 30 days, keep going. But
yeah.
31, is it? 30, yeah.
31
Keep
in
going.
October, but you're right,
Yeah,
because
31.
there are there's not one person that regrets getting sober, you know.
Mm,
There's
yeah.
doubts, like, the FOMO and stuff going through it. You
Mm,
have to ride the storm because, so many people, they have the false belief that after a while, say 30 days, they've cracked it and they
mm,
can have their glass of wine or two. I know people who've had a year off drinking and
yeah.
think they can moderate, and within 2 weeks they're back to the beginning again on that hamster wheel. It's a lifestyle change, and it
Mm,
affects every single part of you: your productivity, your mental health, like you were saying about your anxiety, your fitness. Monday mornings
mm,
for me used to be absolutely hellish for me. I'd be off
mm,
the back of a massive 4-day binge of being drunk for 4 days and then expect to get in my
yeah.
van and go a full day's work. Um, and now I actually love Monday mornings because I get excited about what's ahead. What's going to land in my
Yeah.
email box, and what am I going to be invited on a podcast, or how's my book doing, or there's so many exciting things now off the back of my sobriety,
Yeah.
and I
It's
always
the energy as well.
the energy, yeah, like and the positivity which creates it,
Mm,
energy, Um, and I get excited about people like you that talk to me because I know what's ahead for you.
yeah.
It's like it does. It's not a cliche, and I think people know listening to me that I'm quite straightforward. It's not, oh, well, it
Mm,
just gets better and better and it's all sparkly and beautiful.
yeah.
It's like, actually, yeah, there are tough bits. I've had a really difficult few months, right? But I feel like my foundations are really solid and set now. And I've got
Mm,
ways of dealing with things that I couldn't have dealt with maybe 2 years ago. But that's due to experience and time. You know, we
Mm,
grow, we develop, don't we? And for you,
yeah.
with Tweak Life as well, which, you know, for me, when I started my Instagram page, and you know, I've done a couple of years counselling course and whatever, so I had a bit of structure behind me, like listening skills and stuff. Um, when I realised that I was helping support others, that gave me a big boost as well, right? And
Mm.
it's like with Tweak Life, you know, during this for you, you start to develop content, and you must see rewards there as that's beginning to grow.
Oh, massive. Yeah. And, you know, when I'm getting people emailing me about their situation that they're in, and obviously Tweak Life isn't just around one area, it's how can you improve, you know, your mental, physical, and financial health. Um, and the aim of it was always to put a website together that was free to use and it would give people those wellbeing resources. And when I started doing that, and then you're getting contacted and you're getting those messages, it does give you that purpose to continue. And I think because you set out to help people, you can't switch that off. You know, you have to, you want to do better, you want to add more content. And so, yeah, that's where we're driving forward at the moment, to have that open website that anybody can join it, but also have that feedback, because we are all different in how we cope with things. And what, as you said, what might be in your toolkit might not be in mine, and what
Yeah.
worked for me. You know, as I say, the educating, the podcasts, and the, you know, other community on Instagram that is there going through and understanding you and what you might have gone through, I think is so important, of having that community. I think what's really hard for some people is when their circle of friends might be such that it makes it incredibly difficult for them to cut those ties, if their social circle is around drinking and drinking only. Mine wasn't massively like, or isn't massively like that. My friends accept that it's my choice not to drink, and that's the end of that, really. But something I did do was reach out to friends that, particularly friends that I might have only seen out at a meal or something like that. I started to arrange events that were not around drinking and
Mm,
not meeting in that environment. And so, you know, content like that on Tweak Life, offering the alternatives that exercise, just because I like exercise in terms of a boot camp and going for a run, that might not be for everybody. You
mm,
know, gardening and just moving can be well-being. You know, I spoke to Frances Tophill from Gardeners World, the presenter there, and she's a massive advocate of gardening for well-being, just getting out in nature or going
mm.
for a walk. So all of those things, trying to make it easy for people to find the stuff. It's in one place, because what I found with postnatal depression is I felt very lonely, that my work wasn't affected. You know, you mask it in your everyday life because you're trying to do well in everything, but how I felt internally. And that led me to the Tweak Life, in terms of having it there in one place, that when you are struggling, you haven't got to do the research that I was trying to do at 3 a.m. on postnatal depression, and,
Yeah.
you know, your baby not sleeping, all this, that, and the other. So yeah, putting it in one place to find.
And it also feels to me it could be somewhere to go if you're sort of thinking about your relationship with alcohol. You know, so it's almost like before you think, do you know what, I can explore things on there which help my anxiety, because this isn't always about completely going sober. There's some
Mm,
people, not many, uh, that can tailor their drinking, you know, reduce
yeah.
before going sober. So choosing different things in your life, like what you say, aligning differently rather than
Mm,
every night out's going to be down the wine bar, or even going to the cinema now. There's a bar there, so you meet early and sit there and take a
yeah.
big bloody glass of wine in the film, right?
Mm.
Something I could never do because I'd always want to get a top up, but I know people who sneak it in
Yeah.
there as well.
They
But
don't serve vodka by
yeah,
the litre.
but what I'm saying is, it's a place that you could go that you could start to explore that journey of maybe,
Yeah,
right, instead of me just going cold turkey now, I'm going to start to do different things so I can maybe reduce and then see where I am with that, and then
yeah,
see what I want to do as well. So
yeah.
going in with different and meeting new people as well. That I always said, right, there was a guy that I worked with, and he joined a cycling club. And they used to go out at
Mm.
6:30 on a Sunday morning. Now you're not going to get someone who's on the lash joining a cycling club, are you? You're not.
Yeah, yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah.
you align differently with people.
Yeah, and that's like with myself. So just going back to the first point about, if people are curious about changing a habit, that's like anything, any of your habits. How much water am I going to drink today? Should I journal? Well, you might not want to journal 2 pages, but you might just want to set a goal for that one day.
Mm,
And so rather than thinking about alcohol for your life, think about for that one day, should I have less or have none just this one day? Should I drink more water today? Should I go for a walk today? And break it down. Because if I'd gone back to my previous self and thought that my alarm was going to be set for 5 a.m. every day, and I was going to go to a boot camp, which is tough 3 times a week, and I was going to go
mm,
to PT and do those things, I would have thought you were bonkers.
mm,
But I did those things over time.
mm,
My alarm got earlier. I do really enjoy my mornings, whether it's because I've got 2 kids and it's just that they don't get up at 5, so I can have a hot cup of coffee on my own, and I can go to boot camp, like you say, with other people that are like that at 6 in the morning and find that community. And there, it's finding those groups that it's not about necessarily replacing your friends, but it's putting yourself into different environments that are going to serve you well. And sometimes that does mean different friendship groups.
yeah, like what you were saying before this interview is like different WhatsApp groups. One serves the other. You know,
Yeah.
it's similar to that. And I have to say, like what I say about reducing, it's there's a fine line with moderation, and most people that listen to this podcast, I've got to stop it there because I'm getting myself in trouble around this reducing thing. Do you know what I mean? I've got to
Mm.
really word it because I did the one with Emma Gannon, and I know that okay, I fucked it up a bit, to be honest. I don't normally do that. So what did you last say about the friendship groups?
Friendship groups, that you don't have to um, like change your friends, but put yourself in circles that are serving you well. So maybe spend less time with in that environment,
Yeah.
more time in one that's serving you well.
Okay. Let's start about the WhatsApp groups. Yeah, it's a bit like what we were saying earlier about WhatsApp groups. They all serve different things, right? And
Yeah.
what I find, like as I say about the cycling club, people that reduce their drinking or they stop drinking altogether, they start to do different things like rambling. And like when we're
Mm.
drinking, it's like rambling. What's that rubbish? We've
Yeah.
a pub and whatever. But once you start to change your lifestyle, it really does aid in changing your mindset about what you want to do. And I found that is like once I started to do different things, it really, really helped my sobriety
Mm.
and meeting the new people as well. Um, so if someone was like intrigued about Tweak Life, what would they need to do? Go onto your website.
Just go onto our website and it's going to have unrestricted access. So you can sign up for a newsletter. So we will be having a regular newsletter, but the the website will be, it's free for people to use. It's there for any individual, and we'll be adding content continually. And also we are looking for people to give feedback because just what I found out or what other people have researched doesn't mean that that's the only content that needs to be there. So we do ask individuals that have signed up for the newsletter to give feedback of what they want to see. Because, like you said, if people are curious about changing a habit, often you want to dip your toe in, and there's going to be varying levels of where somebody wants to go. It might be somebody just needs a bit of information to have a few starting points, or they might want a particular app for a particular wellness or anxiety or stopping drinking, etc. So it's just having all that information in one place, so that when you are low or just looking to make improvements, you don't have to be low to want to make a change. You could just want to springboard to the next level. It's in one place and you can find it easily. But it might not be just around physical or mental. It could be finances. Some people might struggle, they might be in debt. We can signpost you. They might want to know how to save for the future. We can signpost them. So yeah, everything that is going to help you going forward, rather than a plaster necessarily. So there's signposting to charities if you are in need of that, but also it's about preventative measures as well.
Yeah, and things like finances, right? Recently, with the gas and electric going up, interest rates going up, government all over the place, that's enough, right, to sort of prevent people stopping drinking and raise anxiety and stress and depression.
Yeah.
And it's a round robin, isn't it? Where you're going round and round and round. It's like, I don't want to stop drinking now because things are terrible. There's a reason we create good day, bad day, any day. Interest rate, of
Yeah.
course, I can't stop drinking. Christmas is coming up. New Year party without drinking, all that kind of thing. So I think as well for people who are sober curious, to have this almost like a one-stop shop, would you say?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, like elements that can affect your well-being, because if you've got poor finances, like you say, it can cause stress, anxiety over those. It's if you are in trouble with money, there's charities out there, there's help that you can get, there's budget calculators, there's so many resources. I've connected with Money Helper, the government-backed website, so they've provided lots of calculators for our site. That they know the importance of that message to be sent around financial well-being. So, baby cost calculators, for example, there's so many tools out there, but sometimes you just don't know where to go. And so that's why we've put it in one place. Just going back to your point on, with the way the cost of living is going, you stopped drinking before lockdown, didn't you? Yeah. And so if you were drinking in lockdown, do you think your drinking would have got even worse had you been drinking?
My problem would have been getting it, right? That's what flagged up for me, is because I was buying endless amounts of alcohol and hiding it all over the place, like smuggling in half a bottles of vodka with wine and putting it in my briefcase and that. And because all the shops were closed, I would have had an absolute nightmare because of the quantity.
Yeah.
So I don't know how I would have negotiated my drinking around all that. So probably I would have been in a right old mess, really, because I would be climbing the walls for booze. So
Yeah.
probably
Because
wouldn't
I
have been
just wouldn't,
drinking more because I wouldn't be
yeah,
able to get it.
those people that are coming to the end of Sober October, that, there are going to be challenges going forward in terms of cost of living and things. And so if they can hold on to the fact of what they've achieved so far, then hurdles that they get in the future are going to be more manageable without alcohol than with it.
Mm,
Is my point about the lockdown with you,
mm.
that you think you would have been in a pickle if you had been drinking and it had been locked down. And so if people are out there thinking, should I, shouldn't I, you know, loads of things, not just cost of living, but lots of things are more manageable without drinking. You know, and the energy levels and the,
Mm.
you know, like you said, the sports you can do, unless you're like you and you pull your calf and then you can't run.
Yeah, that was a bugger. But do you know what? It's as well, write a list, like you said about journaling, of the pros and cons, right? And
Mm,
I mean the pros, I'll always have a counter argument, you know, oh it relieves my anxiety. Yeah, for how long? What, an hour?
mm,
You know, and then it hits you
yeah,
at 3 o'clock in the morning, 10 times worse. You know, it helps me sleep. No, it actually knocks you out. You're not getting any
yeah,
proper REM. Um, you know, it helps me relax temporarily, yeah. But when you've got all the pros, it's like I could list 30, 40 pros of it, you know, and that is like
mm,
dealing with things like the reality of debt, bills. It might seem hard in the beginning because you blunt
yeah,
it out, but it allows you the opportunity to get things straight, you know, talk to people on the phone, organize things, go on your website, look at all these things. Because when you're drinking, you block everything out, you put blinkers on, you don't deal with anything.
mm,
But when, you know, say 31 days off in October, and then you're carrying on week by, I'll just do another week, see how I go, or I might do November,
mm,
see how that goes and whatever. You do get confidence, start dealing with things, you know. It makes
yeah.
such a difference. And it's a
See,
real,
I've been to a lot of events since being not drinking as well. I've done 2 holidays. Um, I've been to a wedding, I've been to meals out, you know, occasions where I would have perhaps had a drink, but, you know, I've still got up and had a dance. People haven't known I've not drank. I think we're more conscious
yeah.
ourselves than actually people necessarily are of us, you know. So
Yeah,
you can
they're not
still go and
shining
do
a
all
big
those things.
spotlight on you. Oh my God, look,
Yeah,
she hasn't
yeah,
drank. Look at her
non-drinker.
dancing. They're not that worried about I'm dancing. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah, exactly.
and it's
Yeah,
stretching yourself outside your comfort zone, you know, and a lot of these things I always say, do
yeah,
a French exit, right? Turn up full of confidence. Don't go in there thinking, everyone's looking at me.
yeah.
Oh my God, I've just given you a kiss on the cheek and you don't smell of alcohol. What are
Yeah.
you doing, you weirdo? You know, it's like, no, go in there,
Own it.
own it, you know, and then think
Yeah,
after a couple of hours when they're saying the same joke and spitting all over you, just do a French exit, clear off out the back, go home, put your pajamas on, put your favorite TV on, have a cup of tea and a digestive, go to bed. Get up in the
yeah,
morning, you remember all of it. They don't even know you've gone. They're like, oh, yeah,
yeah.
where did you go? Oh, my God, I've got such a hangover, man. And do you know what I mean? It's you
Mm,
tailor it to what you want.
yeah,
And that's
yeah,
the best thing about it. And as I said earlier, no one regrets being sober, and it just brings so
yeah,
many amazing things into your life.
yeah. Agreed.
Right. So thank you so, so much for sharing your experience. And I'd like to highlight the fact that it's never ever about quantity, right? Because
Yeah,
about how alcohol makes you feel. Does it make you feel anxious? Does it affect your sleep? Does it, you know, interfere with, say, a bedtime story with your kids where you're thinking, do you know what? I just want mum or no, no, mummy's tired, daddy's tired. You know, no, you read yourself, you know, there are a million
mm,
reasons that we put things off if we've had a drink, right? We procrastinate and we don't give
yeah,
quality time in that. If any of these things get in the way, then it's enough. It's disrupting your life, you know. So it's not about me blacking out with my headphones on, listening to the Pink Floyd track over and over again, thinking the end is nigh. It's about how it
yeah.
makes you feel. So let's round it off. Where can people find Tweak Life? Where can they find you? Um,
So we're on all the platforms, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, as Tweak Life UK, and they can go to our website, www.tweaklife.co.uk. Again, the website is free to access. Just log on, you can sign up for our newsletter where we'll give you regular updates. But yeah, it's not a paid for thing, it's just putting all those resources in one place for you.
that sounds absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Dave.
Thank you for sponsoring this podcast as well. This is going to be the third
Right,
season
mate.
you've done that, so I really appreciate that.
Well, I just think what you do for the community of everybody looking for help, and your honesty and the guests that you have come on is so important. I've got a lot from listening to your podcast. And you know, we connected because I messaged you to say thanks. It meant a lot to me just listening to you, you know. And when you said about coming on to the podcast, I felt almost like I didn't have much of a story to tell because I didn't have the volume of alcohol. But actually, it's an important story to tell because you don't have to make a change because you're at rock bottom. And actually, that's a lot of encouragement from the sober community. You don't have to be at the bottom to change just because there have been and those stories are told. I think the more people tell their stories of their journey, the more people probably perhaps won't get to rock bottom. So thanks ever so much, Dave.
Pleasure. And I think your story today will resonate with a huge amount of people. So thank you so much. And let's get together soon. Meantime, good luck with
Yes,
Talk
definitely.
Life. Take it easy
Thank you.
and thank you.
Speak to you soon, Dave.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.